Well, hello, my name is Thomas Smith. I'm part of the Great Adventure Catholic Bible Study team, and I want to welcome you to our latest series, How to Share the Gospel of Joy. I wanted to begin this series in the very place that was a significant spot on my journey of joy, in this stunning Cathedral of the Madeleine in Salt Lake City, Utah. Let me explain. I didn't grow up Catholic. I was born and raised a Mormon, and later I became a Baptist minister. In 1996, I was welcomed into the Catholic Church, so I like to say I took the scenic route to the church. I still appreciate all the gifts that both the LDS and Baptist traditions gave me. All that to say, I've always been very religious, taken my faith seriously. It was the center of my life. But I also grew up with a lot of misunderstandings, even fears about the Catholic Church. For example, in high school, I remember my religion teacher put up an overhead transparency of the papal mitre, the big hat that the Pope wears. He enlarged a portion of what section he was trying to show us, and he said if we looked very closely, we could make out in the scroll work of the papal mitre the numbers 666. And later in my life, in the evangelical world, there were similar misunderstandings and misrepresentations about Catholics. In my teens, I often came to Salt Lake City. On my walks around town, I would often see the Cathedral of the Madeleine up on the hill, but I never mustered the courage to enter. You see, for me, a Catholic church was a little bit like a haunted house. It simultaneously frightened and fascinated me. Well, finally in 1988, I felt compelled to go inside. I remember very distinctly opening one of the large wooden doors, stepping inside, and this is what I expected to see. I thought it would be dark except for a few flickering candles in front of some eerie statues. A priest with a hood on would come down the center aisle swinging a giant incenser and mumbling something in Latin. But this is what I experienced, an explosion of light and color and beauty. But most importantly, I was struck with this overwhelming sense of peace, like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I know this wasn't just a feeling, an emotional response to the beauty. This peace was a presence. Jesus Christ was here. I didn't know what a tabernacle was in the Catholic context or the Eucharist, but I do know that in that day, I received a very special grace of his presence. It's one of the greatest truths of our faith, isn't it, the Eucharist? In fact, we call it the source and summit of our faith. It's the preeminent sign we as Catholics have of Jesus' promise that he will never leave us orphans, that the gates of hell never prevailed or will prevail against his church, and that he will be with us always, even until the end of time. One other amazing thing happened in that first visit. I was drawn to a side altar to an image of Mary, to Our Lady. I remember standing before her and experiencing again that interior peace. As I've shared that story around the country, I've had at least half a dozen people come up to me and tell me of their encounters that they had with people just like me who wandered into the cathedral. And guess where they always found them? In front of that image of Mary. One woman shared the story of meeting a weeping woman in front of Our Lady. A Catholic woman approached her, put her arms around her, asked if there was anything she could do for her. The woman explained her desperate circumstances. Her whole life had fallen apart. And she told this Catholic woman the only place she had any peace was in front of this woman. And she didn't even know who she was. That's the peace we possess in Jesus Christ. Now, why were they drawn to Mary? She's not the end of the journey, certainly. Well, we know it's because Mary is the star of the new evangelization. Like the star that guided ancient mariners, she leads us to the saving shores of her Son. And that day was a kind of new beginning for me. To use a Western term, Mary lassoed me and began to draw me to her Son and to his bride, the Church. As Pope Francis had said, there is a Marian style to evangelization. Just as Mary welcomed and treasured the gift of Jesus when she received him, she didn't keep that gift to herself. She shared him with the nations, a mystery that is gathered into the visit of the Magi. Well, in the same way, we who have welcomed Jesus into our lives, who treasure the gift of Jesus, must freely and joyfully share him with others. Think about that weeping woman again. The most profoundly selfish thing we could ever do in life is to keep this great treasure to ourselves, to withhold the peace that we possess. So through Mary's intercession and God's grace, may we share this gospel of joy with the same ardent and generous faith that marked our Mother Mary, until the whole world is welcomed into God's covenant family of love. Keeping this gift of peace in mind, in our next session, we're going to look at two key characteristics of a missionary disciple. We'll see you then.